With the changes in recent updates to Age of Wonders, some of my old builds on this channel have become obsolete. Today, we're revisiting the first build I've uploaded, the Ice Snipers. At the same time, I will be showcasing a new build, playing around with the Mystic Culture update and focusing on bolstering construct units. Let's start with the Ice Snipers, now renamed to Frostfire Snipers. The form traits are Arctic Adaptation, Keen-Eyed, and Light-Footed. The culture is Reaver, and the society traits are Runesmiths and Devious Watchers, but whichever combination of Materium and Shadow will work just fine. The first tome we'll be going with is Cryomancy, and we are picking a Dragon Ruler with the Shadow Dragon affinity. The tomes are as follows. Cryomancy for the initial enchantments to boost our damage as well as the elemental summon that comes with it. Although there are differences to our strategy this time around, the world map spell here still helps reduce the enemy status resistance, and we will be applying a lot of statuses to foes. Next is Pyromancy, giving another set of damage boosts to our melee and ranged units. The catch, however, is that by inflicting the burning status with the enchantments here, we will counter the frozen status the ice enchantments provide. So in this build we are exchanging crowd control for raw damage. There will be plenty of it to make up for that downside. Once we reach the next tier, we're going with Inquisition. The Inquisitor's Mark adds a handful of debuffs that we can apply with our shots, including one that reduces status resistance. Not much else in this tome is vital, but you'll be getting plenty of gold mines in this tome setup, so there'll be some synergy with the Tithe Collector. Now for the Tome of Winds. The Seeker Arrows enchantment is pretty much the main thing we care about here, to give our mage locks the extra range. If you were to go for anything else here, Favorable Winds is a very good spell to have on hand. Instead of going to the next tier, we're picking off a third tome here at level 2, with Tome of Scrying. The recent change to mage locks makes their accuracy suffer significantly. The Guided Projectiles enchantment mitigates this to some amount, and allows you to fire through allies with little concern. Next up is the Tome of the Cold Dark, for a stronger world map spell to reduce status resistance with Flash Freeze, as well as Frostling Transformation to buff our own units with increased morale in cold terrain. At this point, we go back all the way to Tier 1 tomes and pick up Tome of Rock. We need more Materium Affinity to get to the Tier 4 tome we want, and the Obsidian Weapons enchantment is another small boost we can give to our mage locks. What makes that choice worthwhile is Meteor Arrows here in Tome of the Crucible. With this, your mage locks will be sniping from many hexes away and striking at adjacent foes at the same time. The more mage locks you have fielded, the more this effect will compound. It is the sort of damage that is worth trading away the freeze debuff for. Then with the last tome you have some options. Given you have possibly access to 3 different elemental units, you could stick with Tome of the Creator for the sake of Eternal Earth, making these elementals undying. Alternatively, if you give your faction enough Order affinity, you could try and go for the Tome of Exaltation, same as the original build once had. This way you can promote your units to get to the bonus range, although Ascended Warriors has been nerfed in recent patches. Whichever way you go, you can see right here just how stacked the attack of a Magelock gets with this build, both in damage and status effects. Your heroes will also be able to reach similar heights and a little further, thanks to the abilities like Killing Momentum. It's worth noting that out of the 3 elementals you have, the frost ones have the most overlap with the enchantments you'll have in place, as it is a skirmisher unit. Far as army compositions go, try to have at least 2 mage locks per army, 3 if you feel confident in the rest of the army's ability to protect them from harm. They are true glass cannons, but their extra range allows you to set up quite effective kill boxes against your enemies. Compared to the prior build, they are more mobile and aggressive, and more reliant on melee units to keep the enemy pinned down. On the upside, they deal out more damage than their prior forms. Overall, I still find them quite powerful and enjoyable to play, and their economy is quite strong thanks to all the special province improvements. Now to the new build, the Arcane Assemblers. Form traits are keen-sighted, arcane focus, and elusive, but those don't terribly matter since we won't be using racial units as much. The culture is the new school of potential for the mystics. Society traits are gifted casters and powerful evokers. And our first tome is the Tome of Evocation. Lastly, we are going with the Dragon Ruler for the astral affinity it has. But you could go Eldritch if you really wanted. Just keep in mind that you'll need 2 astral affinity from your leader in this build, and going with Dragon spares you from having to pick more than one signature skill with astral affinity. Starting with Evocation, we get access to a few basics. Melee damage boost for the constructs, a summon, a buff to our mages and supports, as well as a battle mage unit. That's just paving the way for our next tome, Enchantment. What we want here are the Copper Golem, the Spell-Tempered Shields, and Sundering Blades. Then we get to the Tome of the Construct for, well, pretty much everything in this tome. From the enchantment, to the combat spells, to the racial transformation, and the Bronze Golem. Even the hero skill and the structure are very useful. Tome of Artificing comes next to close up the tier. From here, we mainly want the Artisan Armaments enchantment and the Iron Golem. Siege magic is also useful for our supports and battle mages. Lastly, the Golem Assistant gives your armies a throwaway unit to play around with, so it's worthwhile to pick it for your generals. Tome of the Dreadnought at tier 3 gives us warding medals for better magic defense, and the War Foundry, the special province improvement, which was recently buffed to give +2 ranks to construct units produced in the city. Given how scarce these rank buffs now have become, this will provide a good head start for most of the constructs that we'll be using, except for the Copper Golems, which we can only summon. Tuning Kits is the essential support enchantment in this tome. Next, we go to Transmutation. For the sake of adaptive armor, another increase to our magical resistance, and more status protection. At this point, it's worth noting all the constructs have a lightning weakness, which all of these magical defenses will mitigate. The Transmutation Circle is also very useful to prepare your generals with better equipment, as you'll be able to pick your own magic material once you have it set up. With 6 Astral Affinity, we can afford to get to the Tome of the Astral Mirror. Mirror Veil will now give deflect damage back to attackers who focus on non-physical damage. We'll also benefit from Summon Astral Reflection to duplicate our stronger constructs in battle. An interesting combo is having a support unit use Overcharge on the duplicate, ensuring that the stun debuff won't permanently lose you a unit if the worst happens. Tome of Teleportation is next, being mostly for the sake of boosting your economy as well as giving you more mobility on the campaign map. These Golem armies will run on the expensive side, so the Astral Trade Relay will be your best friend, and the Chronogate will let you have 2 teleport points per city. The final tome is up to you. You could go Tome of the Archmage due to having a Dragon Ruler, which will be a quite powerful unit to be able to teleport around the campaign map. Time Stop is also a very solid combat spell. Alternatively, you could go for Tome of Severing. Null Shield boosts your Iron Golems, and the Disrupting Blades enchantment will benefit the rest of your constructs. Plus, you'll get the Severing Golem, although it is a mythical unit and not exactly a construct. I went with the third option, the Tome of Amplification, mostly for the Amplification Pylon, the Chain Lightning spell, and the Resonant Field special improvement, all to boost the effectiveness of combat spells to assist the construct army. But any of the 3 options is viable. The core of the build is done anyway. In battle, you are a melee rush faction pretty much. Early on, you'll rely mostly on conjured Copper Golems to fill in the ranks and overwhelm the enemy, while having a few spells on hand to take down key targets. Once you get to the Construct Tome and its buffs, you'll be able to very effectively boost your entire army with just 1 cast, so long as you can form a continuous line between them. Try to do this at the start of the turn, then disperse as needed. Your biggest limitation will be maps with lots of choke points that can end up removing the advantage of a melee swarm. Iron Golems are your tanks, holding down the enemies while the rest of your units do the hard work. I was fortunate enough this match to get the Sign of the Cleft Shield, which makes them a little more viable. Bronze Golems are your heavy hitters with their AoE cleave, and they should be the bulk of your army given they evolve off of Copper Golems. Lastly, the Soother is a good support unit, giving extra casting points, providing healing, overcharge, and a small ranged attack of its own. Your heroes should be powerful mages, ideally with plenty of area of effect spells to both harm and heal, taking full advantage of the impassable wall of metal that the rest of your army will be. Copper Golems are your throwaway infantry, but later on in the campaign they will also be fairly stacked with buffs. Take good care of them and you'll be rewarded with their evolved form. The new rework to Mystic Culture is quite favorable towards the spell spamming you'll want to be doing in combat, with cheap damage spells and buffs to give to your army. Although this build works off of polar opposite affinities with both Materium and Astral, I find that this hybrid setup results in a faction with both physical might and plenty of magic to throw around. And that's what I have for you today. I hope you enjoy trying out these new builds. If there's another old build you want me to revisit, or a build idea for me to try out, be sure to tell me. Until next time, and I hope you're having a good day.